we'd love to look at being unreasonable. The work that Paul Singer is doing is incredibly brave, and he challenges us all to be activists. We'd now love to bring up 3 unreasonable entrepreneurs who are brave in the way that they see a problem and they find it a reasonable solution and they invest in that solution anyway. Please welcome Coleman and his unreasonable entrepreneurs.
How about now? Excellent. How's everybody doing?
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We have a very short amount of time here, but I first want to just thank, obviously, Rachel and the Nexus community for welcoming not only Unreasonable Group, but also Sundar and Thread to today's event. So because we have such a short amount of time, I'm going to keep the intros brief. But essentially, this panel is really about scaling what works. And that's what we do at Unreasonable. We find the most promising entrepreneurs across the planet that are tackling what we call our BFPs, or big fucking problems, excuse me. We basically work with major corporations like Barclays and Nike and governments like the US government in order to scale their solutions to reach millions more people to make the world a better place. And we've worked on everything from climate change to tackling gender inequalities to tackling illiteracy across the globe. And I'm honored to be able to share this panel in a short amount of time with not only 2 incredible entrepreneurs that we're working with, but also dear friends, Jag, who is the founder and CEO of Sundar, and Ian, who's the founder and CEO of Thread. So, and I guess I should introduce myself. My name's Coleman Chamberlain, and I'm the Global Managing Director at Unreasonable Group. So, without further ado, because storytelling is probably the most valuable aspect of this, I'd love it if, Jag, you could introduce yourself and share a little bit about Sundar.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Great. So my name is Jag Gill. I'm the CEO and founder of Sundar. So $400 billion of apparel is sold in the United States, of which 98% is sourced and manufactured overseas. Most of us here are digital, we're connected, we buy our clothes online. It takes minutes to purchase a garment, but it takes between 9 months to 18 months to manufacture and produce that garment. So minutes to purchase something, months to create something, because the consumer is digital, but the supply chain of fashion is analog, offline, and antiquated. And so we founded Sundar because we were excited by the white space of that disconnect. And so at Sundar, we're building the digital supply chain for the modern, responsive, and sustainable fashion industry.
Hi, my name is Ian Rosenberger. I'm the CEO and founder of Thread. Right now on the planet, there are about 8 billion tons of plastic. That means there's 1 ton of plastic for almost every human being on the planet. It's enough trash to bury Manhattan about 2 miles deep in trash. The vast majority of that ends up in either landfills or the ocean. Mainly from low-income communities. At Thread, we believe that poverty is a disease, that ending it's possible by the time that I have grandkids. And the cure for it is good, dignified jobs. Those two ideas, trash and poverty, came together to create Thread. Thread creates high-performance materials that move through supply chains, like Jag talked about, and flow into billion-dollar-plus organizations. So we believe that we can end both the trash problem and the poverty problem through market-based solutions in textiles. We serve some of the largest brands on the planet. Some of our clients are brands like Timberland. We work with brands like Marmot, and we do actually some business with HP as well. We turn our byproduct into printer cartridges. So excited to be here.
Great. So to kick things off on the panel and get to the meat of it, I think it's easy to talk about going to scale, and at so many events and conferences, that's what people do. They talk about how do you go to scale. They talk about impact investing as a thing that is almost static. And I'm wondering for you two, where are you right now in terms of scale, and where are you going?
Sure.
And just briefly. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give it a try. We started in Haiti after the earthquake in 2010. We set up our first supply chain there. And the best way to think of a Thread supply chain is we take trash from these poor neighborhoods and we convert it and own it at every level of the supply chain, so we can guarantee perfect traceability and transparency. You can think of one of our supply chains like a vacuum cleaner that sucks up trash and turns it into useful stuff that people can use. We now have a supply chain since we started in Honduras as well, and we're moving now into Cambodia. So the idea is that you can create a great deal of scale by creating a very few, relatively speaking, of these vacuum cleaners across the world. Landfills take up a lot of space and a lot of energy, and we believe that those are natural resources that can be actually eliminated entirely by placing market prices on things like trash.
Great. So in terms of scale, talking about the mechanics of our business, we're building software. We're building a platform that connects textile mills, garment manufacturers, suppliers, vendors with global brands and retailers. And we enable them to connect through technology, through digital services. And so when we began building this marketplace, we began building it user by user, customer by customer, supplier by supplier. I spent a lot of time in India going to villages, meeting artisans, meeting big manufacturers, and realizing very quickly that it would take an enormous amount of capital to scale rapidly. And so the big pivot for our company was last year we decided to focus on partner-driven strategies, so working with existing organizations that could help us get to scale more quickly, and of course with scale you get more impact. Yeah. And so that was really important to us. It was really hard to build a global business sort of market by market, in company by company, and country by country.
Mm-hmm. What sort of brands are you working with right now, Jag?
So we're working with a range of brands. It's amazing, from very large established brands and retailers, names that we all know, to some of the most exciting emerging brands, even here in New York City. So brands such as Mara Hoffman, whose mission is to work with sustainable suppliers. They're a small company. They have a small team. They don't have resources to send their design and sourcing teams to India to find suppliers. So they use our software and our technology to further their mission and meet new suppliers and new manufacturers to work with. And so we're seeing impact from the largest brands to the smallest players that are selling their products locally, and that's really exciting for us.
So you both make it sound pretty easy, and I think what you're doing is the furthest thing from easy. It's almost alchemy with what you both are trying to achieve. So give us a real
what it's really about.
A real talk on what it really is like to try and scale a business.
Yeah, it really
everything's
sucks.
against you.
It's really, really hard. And they really
Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks. Yeah, it's. I mean, building a business is hard under normal conditions, but building a business that's trying to tackle poverty and one of the largest waste or problems we've had from a pollution standpoint, and maybe ever, it feels impossible some days. But I think we're lucky. I think that there's more momentum amongst young people when it comes to solving problems this way, not through the traditional nonprofit model, but through things like impact investing and family offices. They're actually applying resources to these problems. I'm a firm believer, and I know the three of us all are firm believers that we're going to end these problems, to solve these problems through market-based solutions. You know, the era of an NGO solution is coming to an end. Now, that doesn't mean I don't believe in NGOs. I absolutely do. In fact, I met this morning with one that's now thinking about how do we take the money that we've traditionally given as philanthropic donations, and how do we turn it into program-related investments? How do we take those donations and make them last for generations? So. For us, I think that the business is among. I wish I could have started like TCBY franchises or McDonald's franchises. It'd been way easier. But this I believe is the center of how we're going to end things like climate change and how we're going to protect our natural resources for my grandkids.
Yeah.
I completely agree with everything that you said. I also lack a lot of sleep because I'm working with so many different time zones. So once kind of the US opens, India's closing, and then Europe opens. So lack of sleep is a big personal challenge of mine, but completely agree. I mean, we're working in an industry that is so global, so distributed, so fragmented. There are a lot of cultural barriers to change. There's a lot of cultural barriers working with large companies and large corporates and brands. There's a lot of fear about innovation, just generally innovation and what it means sort of from the ground up. So a lot of interesting problems on a daily basis to solve.
If you had to choose one, that if you could change it overnight, only one barrier, what would it be?
You can go first. If I could change one, it would be helping. I don't think that retail brands understand yet how powerful their consumers are, and I don't think they're as quick to change as they should be. I think there is a reason, I'm sure a lot of you know, and the brands you buy from are struggling for the most part. Fashion, apparel, etc. They're taking nosedives in many sectors, and I think it's because they're not smart enough. They're not smart enough to adapt, and that's the reason Jag was saying that smaller brands are becoming a big deal, because the ones that are able to adapt and actually create trustworthy, authentic products that their customers believe in are the ones that are going to win in this next generation. So I spend a lot of time not just selling my product, but educating the companies behind it as to why young people actually care about products that have stories, that are transparent or traceable, or that help end things like poverty. It's easy to talk about companies like Tom's Shoes and say what you want about Tom's. The buy one, give one model is a model that companies like ours stand on the shoulders of, because I think we're moving from an era before of philanthropy, and then things like buy one, give one came up, and now we're moving to an era where goods themselves, just by the action of buying a product, should do something good for the world and for other people. That's a tall order for brands to, come along with.
For me, I think it's the mental model that fast fashion can't be sustainable.
Yeah.
I think it can. I think that there are companies that are accomplishing that. I think it's a combination of technology, culture, and process that can achieve that. I think as consumers now, we're used to seeing things online, purchasing them, seeing things in fashion and seeing trends and concepts. But I think it can be sustainable. I think brands and retailers can make the right choice in terms of the suppliers and the manufacturers that they work with.
Yeah. So in terms of the trends that you're seeing in the space, and I'd say broadly the space, not just your own industries, what do you think this room should be excited about, should be looking forward to when it comes to driving impact at scale or scaling impact?
I think in the next 50 years, we're going to end poverty. I think that's going to happen. And I think it's because of not just the people in this room buying really amazing things, but I think that I'm an optimist, obviously, but I think that we've already halved extreme poverty in the past 50 years. We're going to have it again in the next 20, and after that again. I think that that's something for us to look forward to. I think we're under very trying political circumstances these days, and I think that we have an opportunity to do some amazing things in terms of impact that way.
And for me, I think it's the power of storytelling in products, where things are made, how they're made, who made them. I think that's a fascinating shift, and I think it's here to stay.
I know the thing's blinking, but I would just add that I would encourage the people here that you can go to conferences like this all day long. You can spend all of your time going to conferences, and these times are extremely valuable. I would encourage you, though, like the friction that comes from actual action, from taking what you learn in places like this and applying it to new businesses and ideas. Like, when I say we're going to end poverty, I mean that we, collectively, not just the 3 companies up here, the people that work for us, it falls on all of us to actually stand up.
Yeah. Love it. Well, with that, huge thanks to Jag and Ian. We need a selfie.
We're going to take a selfie, sorry.
Everybody wave.
They want you to wave.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
Amazing.